Columbia, this is Houston, AOS over. Setting up the flag now. Now you can see the stars and stripes.
Welcome, everyone, to the TKW Podcast. I am Anthony Corbo, and joining me, as he does every week, is my co-host, Kyle Maggio.
What's going on, everybody?
Things are, it's looked a little bit better towards the end of that game, but, still Knicks come away with another loss. Before we get into that, make sure that you're following the Knicks Wall on Twitter and TKW on Twitter as well, TKW Podcast on Twitter, that is. Head to our YouTube channel. If you're listening there, hit that subscribe button. Head to the knickswall.com. We're going to have the recap of this game already out. We got a TKW highlight from the game already out. We got, the gears are turning. The wheels are in motion, 24 hours a day. Make sure you're following me and Kyle at Corbo Anthony, at Kyle Maggio. Bryan Gibberman will be back with us within a couple of days, but, at Bryan Gibberman on Twitter. And before we get into the game tonight, Kyle, let's address a quick bit of news from this week. So we had a bit of an incident as Knicks owner James Dolan was walking away from a game the other day when a fan kind of heckled him to sell the team, and Dolan and threatened to ban this fan from Knicks games. He said, enjoy watching them at home. It's just Dolan's done a good job, like you've been saying. You've kind of been pioneering this, but Dolan's done a good job of staying out of the way this season, largely letting the front office work. But it's just when you have moments like this where you have this guy very clearly letting his temper get the best of him, and I get that the season's probably frustrating for him as well, and I'm sure all the sell the Knicks things have got to be crazy frustrating, but I mean, it's just not a good look from an outsider point of view on the franchise, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's my main issue. Was he just has finally, after years of us complaining and whining of, if you're not going to sell, just kind of stand back and let the team operate like the Rangers seemingly always have and been a successful franchise. That's all we wanted, right? And then he really started doing that with Phil Jackson. He said he was going to do it, and he really more or less did, until he had to step in and do, fire Phil at the end. And after they hired Perry, it seemed like they just resumed business as usual. He just went back to sort of being invisible. He made a couple of little radio interviews here and there to discuss the state of the team, perhaps selling it or not. But, that's all we ever asked. And he was kind of doing that, it seemed, again, to the public knowledge. Maybe we don't know about the KP situation, but it seemed that way. And then, it's like, why do it? Why do it with all that with your history and with the fans, and it's 2019 and everybody has cameras? Like, why? At least go be look at him. If you need to kick him out, look at him. Go do it silently. Tell your security guy where to go get him. Why do the interaction? Why do the song? It's a bad look for the summer. Hopefully it doesn't affect much, but that is a really bad. We almost got to the end of the season. It is March, 11th right now? 10th? 11th when you'll hear this, but just we're almost there. 3 weeks away from the end of the season. It's just no more hiccups. We can't afford it. You traded away your franchise cornerstone to have a shot at max top flight guys this summer. Please don't.
Yeah, it's just, it's so interesting because, this is obviously a moment of pressure. This is, a moment of Dolan lashing out at this fan here. And it's just so interesting because it comes on the heels of all those rumors from about a month ago that he was looking into selling the team. He was no longer interested in putting up with all the grief that the Knicks bring his way. It seems like maybe those reports really got to him, whether they were true or not. The fact that it was out there in the public eye really, must have frustrated him to a degree. And at the point where now it's really the idea of him selling the team, of James Dolan selling the team, has just entered that public discourse again. So I just, it seems frustrating. I get why it would be, but again, like you're saying, it's almost the middle of March already. We got just a couple of weeks left of the season. Is there like 5 weeks left of the season? There's like 16, 15 games left. Just got to get there. Just got to get through these last couple of months, and we're going to be good to go. And hopefully that means big time free agents coming through. Hopefully we've talked about it on this podcast a ton. We've talked about it, whether it's on the knickswall.com, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's us or not. The Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to New York rumors are, they're strong. They're out there, and it's pretty much a known quantity at this point. It is a little interesting, though. I've been seeing this not only just in what Charles Oakley said today, but in what a lot of people have been saying recently about Kyrie potentially being more interested in joining up with LeBron James in Los Angeles versus coming to New York. I'm curious how much have you heard this? Is this something that you put any stock into?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get killed for this, and it's fine. I think that's much more likely a scenario than
it makes more sense, doesn't it?
It's much more likely a scenario.
It makes a lot more sense for Kyrie when you just think about it. Now, the good news about Kyrie Irving is that he doesn't always seem to say the things or necessarily do the things that would necessarily be what we would view as the right move. So maybe the right move is going to the Lakers. He ends up on the Knicks, but yeah, I found it very interesting that Charles Oakley was the one who tweeted out that Kyrie should be heading to Los Angeles instead of the Knicks. He goes, Kyrie would look great in a Lakers uniform next year with @King James. Just. There's like a swoon thing that's happening with them, right? Ever since the phone call between LeBron and Kyrie earlier this year, that there's a whole get them back together kind of thing. There's a whole there's like a photo that's been going around of them both having a conversation while covering their mouths or something like that. Just there's, I would say, starting to become as much smoke there as there is with him signing for New York for seemingly no reason other than playing with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and I will say, to try to save face here for everyone who's going to yell at me for not blindly believing that Kyrie is going to come here for sure. I think, and I said this on a pod I think we did last summer, one of them. I felt like if we were going to land any big free agent, it was always going to be Durant. And I remember talking about the LeBron playbook and following that. And I think he's the only guy that you could actually build some sort of a logical case for coming here. But he's the only one I'm not even confident. I would just have a better feeling about coming here. Kyrie is like, for me, I'll get some jokes off, but I'll believe that when I see it. I don't think he's coming at all. I think this is mostly Durant just kind of arrives, drops his bags here and is just like, all right, we'll figure this shit out as we go. I got nothing but time. I'm age 31. The East is wide open. I'm an MVP caliber player. This team's immediately going to be a playoff team. So whatever we do, I'm good with. You got assets. You have cap space. We can do anything.
I am, after this season and everything that's gone on with the Lakers so far, I think I'm a pretty firm believer that Kevin Durant may have surpassed LeBron James as terms of where they sit in the league-wide ranking, however arbitrary that might be. But I don't know. I think some pause might be... I think Kevin Durant might pause a little bit at the thought of him just coming here by himself. I mean, you don't have a roster that's ready to compete other than him. This roster is in a worse spot right now than
Right,
than the Lakers roster was. And now look at what happened to LeBron James. Is Kevin Durant, if Kevin Durant doesn't have a promise from another player to go play there, like, does he look at the Lakers situation this season and say, and does that give him some pause to sign it with New York?
No, I don't really think. I think he's stated that, players don't want to play with LeBron earlier. I think it was earlier this year, beginning of the season. I think he said something about, players don't want to go and play in that kind of a situation, like as much as you guys think they do. Like, it's not just like, oh, LeBron's here, everything's great. Like, it's a lot of stress and you get blamed for a lot of things if, the team underperforms because everyone knows how great LeBron is, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think that he would go, especially here's my thing. I don't think that he would leave the Warriors to go to another, like, already okay / good team. And I will say that about the Lakers because, before LeBron and everybody else seemingly died on that roster one by one, they were an above 500 team. And then LeBron missed 17 games. Brandon Ingram is now gone for the rest of the season. Alonzo's been gone 2 months. And while he's not maybe what everyone thought he'd be, he's at just a good, effective starting player. So, or just player in general, rather. So they've had a rough go, but I don't think he has any interest in going there and playing in that situation and the LeBron theatrics. I think if he wanted to be with the winner, a bona fide winner, he would just stay where he's at. And if he was going to leave, it was going to be to make that sort of flip the script on the narrative move. And I will say this too. It doesn't necessarily mean that he would have to choose the Knicks in that scenario. Like, I think Brooklyn has money they can spend this summer, max money, I believe, for a slot.
Yeah. So Brooklyn has contracts that would be valuable to other teams too. So
right. So, like, if they needed to move Dinwiddie, that's a really good contract. They could move Dinwiddie. D'Lo, they could let walk. I believe at the end of this year, he's an unrestricted free agent.
But see, that's their problem, and not to get off on too deep of a Nets tangent here.
Rather.
Yeah, not to get on too deep of a Nets tangent here, but like, their issue is that they could go for Kevin Durant, but they're going to end up paying D'Angelo Russell. And they already gave Spencer Dinwiddie a pretty good contract, but like, I just I guess we haven't really been considered them because of just what a season D'Angelo Russell has had for them, and just the fact that I don't see them wanting to give him up or let him walk necessarily. I guess it all depends on when they sign their players, though.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't really truly believe the Nets are going to get anybody, but I don't. I think it's, obviously we can't guarantee he's going to come to the Knicks for that LeBron playbook kind of logic.
But I think the most interesting thing about this whole the Kyrie and the Kevin Durant scenario is that really when you take a look at it, the two biggest competitors for both of those players are both in Los Angeles. Like, it's the Clippers for Durant and it's the Lakers for Kyrie, and it's just it's pretty fascinating to me. It would be such a sad state of affairs if both of them ended up splitting up for the other the opposite LA teams, and the Knicks just end up with nobody. But we're not speaking that into existence here.
I just think they have to have something planned, or they know that they can get a trade off as a plan B, because I don't think you trade Kristaps to sell the franchise. And I love Dennis Smith as much as anyone else, but if they kind of return with this same team more or less, and they're pushing the whole rebuild mantra behind Dennis and whoever the free agent the draft pick is this year, and then Mitch and Knox, it's like I'm gonna begrudgingly have to start talking myself back into like the trust the process. All these kids are gonna be great mindset, but oh boy, would I be angry.
Here's like my counterpoint to that is that I'm not so sure that the Knicks necessarily have something lined up. I
don't think they do either. I think that they think they do.
Yeah, but here's my thing is that I think that they think they do as well. But the biggest issue is that what I really think they're doing is overvaluing where that pick is going to land. Like, I really think that they might not have something set in stone right now, but their thought process is, oh, we're going to get the number 1 pick, or we're going to get a top 3 pick. And I just they seem to be so bold on these moves that they're making, and they, obviously trading Kristaps is about as bold as you could get this season. But it's that it's just so hard to be sure and call anything for certain when it comes to these players and their free agency, especially the max unrestricted players. And it almost looks like as much sense for them to both stay in their locations as it is for them to go. And whether or not they've stated whatever, it hardly matters at this point in the season. But it's just, I wonder if the Knicks don't have as much in place as we think, and they just are assuming that they're going to walk away with Zion and everything will be fine.
My Kevin Durant take is that obviously it's not a sure thing. Nobody knows this, but I think the thing that happens is it's most likely he signs back in Golden State. But what I think is happening is he probably has some sort of stipulation, like, okay, I'd like to stay, but you guys got to get rid of Draymond. Like, I think there's something like that, basically. And then the rest of the, he's going to the Knicks stuff is basically his agent trying to press the Warriors, like, look, we will go to the Knicks, but, we'd like to stay here. So are you going to make this happen or not? Like, I think that's a more likely scenario. I just don't think that he would up and leave the Warriors just to come and do the LeBron thing. I think that would be like an alternative. That's like my gut. You can yell at me about it being wrong. It might be, but that's my gut. I just think like it's like we're going to be a Golden State if they do what they're supposed to do. But if for whatever reason they're like, nope, we're just going to go back to the 2015 Warriors and goodbye, Kevin. You were unhappy here this year. Have a good one. Then he would. His plan B might be to come here or somewhere else. But
I think you're absolutely right with that. I think what happens is, I don't doubt that Kyrie or Kevin Durant could be using, the Knicks as a leverage play to just, I don't know, maybe get a little bit more say in their organizations. It's hard to really say what else they could really want from them, but maybe it's a whole other team that we're not even considering in here. I just, I think that the truth kind of lays a little bit in between, everything that we're talking about here. They're probably not quite as decided. They may have some things in place, but it might be just as easy for them to, back out of those agreements. And in the end, it is their free agency. They do what they have to do with it. And, we're only taking guesses. We're never going to know. But yeah, it's the LeBron and the Lakers smoke when it comes to Kyrie has been quite discouraging lately, but hopefully, we end up coming out on top there.
All we can do is hope. There's no guarantees, not even Zion.
Not even Zion. That's we've gone through. I mean, what game is this now? We just played the 67th game of the season. So we have 15 games left. And can you imagine? I don't even want to say it. Like, just there's nothing guaranteed. Like you fight all this point. You just all of us collectively, every listener to this podcast is just we suffer and we drudge through like half of the season and everything. And we get to the end, the first half of the season feels like it's tough, and there's some bounce back games and everything, and then you just go through the second half and it's just bleak the entire way through, and especially after the road trip and after Christmas, and it's just, Lord, there's been some lows to the season. I just really hope it doesn't end up, being in another situation where chances out of our favor.
Yeah, what happens in seasons like these is at the beginning of the year, we do this sort of fake enthused thing. Okay, guys, we know we're going to lose a bunch of games. We don't give a shit about that. It's all about development.
I think there's definitely truth to that. Like,
there is, but it's like, at the beginning of the year, we're like very positive about those things. And then as the year goes on and guys hit rookie walls and the games get really ugly, the team stops scoring. I think the last 3 games, the Knicks have scored 96, 94, and 92 points. Yeah. It's like the grind really starts to hit here, it's like
right.
that joy is gone.
The final stretch is tough. I mean, yeah. I think we could both say, and I think everybody listening would agree, that there are points in this season where you just can't. You just have to turn your eyes away. You have to stop listening. Like it is tough, but I don't think that necessarily. I think that like at the beginning of the season, that excitement and that kind of refreshment is real because you want to see what happens. You want to see where it goes. Like there is a possibility that the team could overperform. There's the obvious possibility they could underperform, like they have managed to this season, regardless of whatever your expectations are. But you know, there's a scenario that we're looking out to play out. You know, whether that's for success in the short term or the long term, and it's just, you know, when you start to hit those road bumps, when you start to, you know, things get to detoured a little bit, and you're just it becomes frustrating. There's nothing else you can really do but be frustrated at a certain point, and you know, this all feels so old right now. It feels so like antiquated now. Like I just want the draft lottery to come up around, you know, basically at this point, and then I just want the draft to come around, and then, you know, free agency and everything like that. Like we've been, and pretty much since, you know, beginning of January at this point, we've been in that mindset ever since the trade deadline. Really, I'll give it that. Like it's just been the race to the finish now, and it's a long race.
Yeah, I mean January was an especially brutal month. Everybody went ice cold. The team was just really, really bad, and not even like the fun bad. There was, of course, a couple of exciting games, but, you know, more or less it was just like bad. And February was no different either. Kevin Knox has been especially brutal in 2019. He actually played pretty well tonight. We'll get to the game in a second, but yeah, it's just, you know, Mitch after the All-Star break pretty much has been the bright spot. You know, like at least for a while, guys were like passing the baton, but then like there was that January to like mid-February when like no one was stepping up enough. Like Trier is still rounding back into form, and he's been playing really, really well now. But Mitch finally started staying in games and really making his impact felt, and it was like a relief. Like, oh, at least we have someone to watch again.
So really quick, and you know, I want to discuss the game a little bit against you know, who the hell do we play tonight? God, these games are all blended together. The Timberwolves. There's been too many Sacramento Kings games this week. There's just been the Suns.
there was
Wolves.
too.
Holy shit! Everything is just blending in for me. No, but you know, I was kind of looking back. Obviously, the biggest thing with Mitch has been the fact that, you know, he's scoring pretty well. His blocks are sky high. They continue to get better, and you know, his rebounding has finally started to come around after, you know, just a rough start to the season, but really looking solid on that end too. But I mean, you know, his greatest skill is as a shot blocker.
Can I read you a stat about his shot blocking?
Oh, I was about to rattle off some other stats, but please.
Okay, rattle off yours first.
When's the last time that Mitchell Robinson had a game with less than 2 blocks?
Oh, this is going to be terrific. Had to be like beginning of February.
It was February 1st. He had 1 block. Before that, it was January 17th. And that was the second game that he came back from his, you know, his extended period of time he missed in December and early January. But I'm looking through it right now. Yeah, the last time that he played in a game where he had 0 block shots was December 12th.
And good.
Yeah, it was a horrible game. It was a loss in Cleveland. It was a minus 17 that whole game. You know, it really took that injury for him to start coming back around. But ever since, it's just been, I mean, God, he's been outrageous. But you had a shot blocking statistic you would like to talk about as well.
So per NBA.com/stats on Twitter, with 5 blocks tonight, Mitchell Robinson becomes one of 8 rookies in NBA history to record at least 2 blocks in 15 straight games. The other 7 are Alonzo Mourning, Shaquille O'Neal, David Robinson. Those are 3 very good names to begin any list with. Manute Bol, Hakeem Olajuwon. It's a very strong 5 so far. Mark Eaton and Trey Rollins.
Oh my God, Tree Rollins! Shout out to Tree Rollins.
just for the name.
Oh man, he's great. I remember. God, just a lot of 2K with Tree Rollins, but
or is he Tree Rollins?
I'm gonna go with Tree Rollins, but I feel you. I gotta pay homage to Henry Rollins on this one, but no, it's just God. What a list! I mean, like, Mitch is such a different player than all those guys, and most of those players tended to play quite a few years ago. But yeah, it's just it just really looks like he has unmatched potential on like the blocking on the when it comes to blocks. Like, he obviously still needs to get in position a little bit more. He tries a little bit too hard sometimes, especially on the 3-point blocks, but it is a skill of him still. Every now and then he's going to get caught on it, but still it's something very unique to his game, and he's just he's making the legendary strides here. I mean, like that list you just read off, those are Hall of Fame players, especially Tree Rollins.
Well,
and
go ahead.
No. It's really fascinating where just his whole storyline, just him, being a second round pick to not playing in college before that, and being an McDonald's All-American before that, to like, it's just, I have no idea how to like still properly evaluate this guy, and he's played over 60 games this year.
So I have another Mitchell Robinson stat.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a date before, February 1st, which was the last day that Mitchell Robinson did not block 2 or more shots.
Right.
So per the MSG Network's broadcast, Mitchell Robinson has the highest percentage of his team's blocks in the NBA since February 1st. I think I might have said February 1st twice. Mitch had 48 total blocks, making up 81.4% of the Knicks' total blocks.
Shit.
Yes. That's second
incredible.
place person was Miles Turner with 47 and 81% respectively. And then Gobert was 35 total blocks since then for 62.5%.
Wow.
And then Drummond was fourth with 30 and at 62.5% as well. So
I don't know if we're going to see more players come into the league kind of like Mitchell Robinson, where they're like, completely and utterly defensively oriented and just like exist for the block. Like, everything else will come around, but Robinson exists for the block right now. It's just, I wonder, he's like the first center I really see who just does like just that with like his range of movement and just like his flexibility, and just it's fascinating, and I wonder how often down the road we're going to be able to see players replicate just what he can do.
I have one last stat.
Oh, here we go. I love the mid segment
on Mitchell Robinson, and I'm just trying to pull it up. So, Anthony, was there another franchise center drafted back in 1985? Somebody notable?
Imagine who.
So, that big fella Patrick Ewing?
I know Patrick Ewing. I don't know if I know of a Patrick Ewing.
So Patrick Ewing might be a distant relative, but so in their first 50 games, Patrick Ewing had 103 blocks for 2.06 blocks per game. Mitchell Robinson, in his first 50 games, 118 blocks.
Wow.
For 2.36 per game. And he's the last rookie to average at least 2.3 blocks per game. I don't know if you want to take a guess.
I can't even think of it. Who could it be?
It was this little-known fellow by the name of Tim Duncan.
Oh.
So pretty much every time Mitch does something related to blocks, he's on a list with Hall of Famers, or he's doing something a Hall of Famer has done.
Yeah.
I obviously am not going to make any outrageous claims that he is a future Hall of Famer, but he is taking very important steps in his development very quickly, and it bodes very well for his future, which I am excited for. And I, for once, hope that we keep a single rookie past his rookie contract in New York, and I'd love for it to be him.
Well, this is how you measure potential, right? Like obviously this doesn't tell us that Mitchell Robinson is a future Hall of Famer. It's not going to predict the future for us or anything, but it's how, these kind of benchmarks and seeing, like, there's obviously a lot of glamour stats out there, and especially you can associate them with the defensive end and everything, but when you see, like, raw number of blocks and just compare where, Mitchell Robinson's impact on the court to, what some of these Hall of Famers have done in one, role of theirs or another, it's just, this is how you can kind of tell whether or not somebody is going to be able to perform at a high level. How high of a level is still to be determined, but, these kind of flashes, like these kind of benchmarks he's hitting, like, this is what's so encouraging about him. And just the fact that he's so good this early and, like, is so affordable for the Knicks over the next couple of years. It's a wildly exciting, he's a wildly exciting player to have on this team. And he's a very exciting piece for the Knicks' future moving forward.
Yeah, I figured out I'd pack a little extra with the Mitch stats in light of Bryan's absence here tonight.
Yeah, I'm really upset we're doing this without him.
Yeah, I had to make his impact felt. I knew we needed the extra Mitch punch because that's all we got, man. That's all we got right now.
Yeah. Before we take you through the rest of the game, just as we were saying before, make sure you've liked and followed us on all platforms. Please, we need some more subscriptions coming up. I think we teased out a giveaway a couple of weeks ago we never did anything with, so we should actually do that now. But we'll get give us a subscription, give us that 5-star review, unsubscribe, resubscribe, whatever. We really appreciate it. We love hearing from you all. Shouts to the YouTube comments. You guys are great. And so let's kind of take a look at what else happened for the Knicks tonight. So they lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves 103-92. Kind of opposite of what we saw against like Sacramento previously. They almost kind of came together towards the end. They had they outscored the Timberwolves in the fourth quarter, but ultimately they just they fell short another game. But the Wolves didn't even have Karl Anthony Towns. They had no Wiggins. Taj Gibson was their leading scorer for the night. So not a great showing, but we did have some performances from individual players. We talked about Robinson already, and how transformative he was. Actually, real quick before we get off of him, he had 4 blocks before he had his first personal foul tonight. And that didn't come until midway through the third quarter. So, just another impressive stat from him. But why don't we get started with Damyean Dotson? Plays a team high 41 minutes, goes 10 for 19, scores 26 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. He had a huge game tonight, and his performance was great. But I just want to call quick attention to his consistency. Like, this is a guy, I'm looking at his numbers on Basketball Reference right now. He has, he's doubled his scoring average from last year. He's gone up from 4.1 to 9.9. His minutes are way up from 10.8 to 25.5. But his field goal percentage is slightly down, about 3%. His 3-point percentage is way higher, almost, at 37, almost 38%. And it's so similar to what it was, just all across the board. Just the level of consistency has been able to just translate into bigger minutes. It's definitely encouraging for what he's been able to do, both as a reserve and as a starter.
I think I know everybody wants him to start, but I think if he's not going to start, then he needs to be closing games, similar to how we always felt about Frank last year, especially. So I think against the Kings game, Fizdale said he was really winded, and that's why he didn't play. So I get why he's, not not starting, I guess. But I just think they got to make sure he always closes out the games. I think they did a better job tonight with that.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's really proven to be the most consistent wing on the Knicks roster this season. I think even going back to when, Hardaway was still on the team, too. It's just, the level of expectation you can get out of Damyean Dotson night after night. Like, he's not a guy who's going to go off for 26 points every night like he did tonight, but he's capable of it. And even when he's not, like, he just fits into the offense well. He looks like I can very much see over the course of this season, like, his improvement. Like, just the way he takes care of the ball a little bit more at towards the 3-point line. His passing looks like it's improved a little bit. Like, he's just he like can pause a little bit longer. Like, he waits. He can read his defender better. So he's really, really shown that he's going to be. He could be another piece for the Knicks that they could have gotten on a cheap contract. Who could be sticking around and provide a little bit of an identity for this team for a little while. He's just a great role player, especially if the Knicks go through with their big free agency signings. Like, Dotson's a great guy who's going to be able to fit around anybody.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, when I opened my mouth before, I was still stuck in. I was thinking about the Kings game, and I thought about Mitchell Robinson not playing down the stretch. So I don't know why I did that. But Dotson, we wanted him to play a lot last year, and he didn't really get to do that. And when he did, he played pretty well. He had that career night against the Wizards when he went off for, I think, 31 points. So he's made the most of his minutes this year. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I feel I'm getting pretty confident in him, like you said, being an impact starting wing.
He's a guy.
I just think you always need a guy who's, tonight he was kind of doing everything. He was shooting, obviously, which is his thing, which is great, but he was also making a lot of off-ball movement, which literally nobody in the Knicks does. Nobody moves the ball. And he made a couple of really nice cuts, even if guys weren't finding him. DeAndre Jordan had one really nice find in the first couple of plays, really. But, it's nice. Like, you always need a guy like that. You always need, like, that Rip Hamilton dude who's just running nonstop. Right.
That's a good comparison for him. I like that.
Yeah, and maybe he can develop into that kind of – I don't think he's going to be ever as good as Rip was. But if he can develop into, like, a poor man's Rip, like a JJ Redick, like, you just need a guy who's always moving. It's very important to the offense.
Yeah, and I think that's why he plays well with Vonleh, too, because I think that he's the other guy on the roster who moves well without the ball. And they bring an interesting, lineup combination to with the starters, but
they bring a little muscle too on the rebound. Because he's a pretty good rebounding wing, Dotson.
Yeah, Dotson's trying to see how many rebounds per game. Yeah, he's averaging like 3.5, a little over 3.5 rebounds per game this season. That's up, pretty considerably from last year. So he's just, he's the kind of guy whose ceiling doesn't really concern me as much. Like he's good now. I can see how he's going to be able to fit in with just about anybody else. Like, I have a feeling he's going to play up to what his other teammates present for him. Like, he's not a dominating, take over a game kind of player, on a night-to-night basis. He obviously had a lot of that tonight, but, he's just, his ceiling is less of a concern to me because I know that he's going to be able to fit in whatever his role ends up being with, higher talent around him.
Yeah, and again, I don't know where he ultimately ends up. I always, when we have these seasons like this, I always try to remind everybody that, guys always look a little bit better when they get this much opportunity on a really bad team. And we can talk ourselves into guys a little bit. But I really do think that Dotson's going to be a good player, whether he stays here or not. I just think you always need a guy like that. We know that regardless of this team being good or bad, that he's a pretty good defender. But on the wing, you always need a pretty good defender. And on the wing, you always need a pretty good defender who can shoot threes. So he's going to have a job for a while now after this season. I feel confident saying that. I hope he sticks around here for a while longer anyway. I hope it's not just another guy who's out in the next year or so. But, you always need a guy like that. And it's just important because he can kind of do things like tonight. He had 6 assists as well, and he stepped up and he's not normally the leading scorer. Lately it's been a Dennis Smith or, Trier's had some big nights, but it's never really him. So he's had a couple of big nights this season, but it's not something you can count on. Normally we find him in that like mid-teens range if he's having a pretty decent night. So, but he's like a player like that who sometimes you just need that. If guys can't get going, you need your shooters to be hot and be ready and take a little bit more shots, be a little bit more aggressive and, make those cuts, run a little bit harder. And Dotson is that kind of player. And those are, sometimes what make, it helps solidify a good team off the bench or just as a guy who doesn't need the ball, doesn't care if he gets the ball. So he's starting to put it together. I believe in him, and I hope it works out. That's the kind of a bench glue guy that you would need on a good team,
Let's turn our attention now, kind of the opposite of where we're going with Dotson, but Kevin Knox is obviously, we've talked about this a lot. He's struggling. He's still struggling. The conversation hasn't changed very much. I thought he had a decent game tonight, but just, the consistency is not there, and it's often even hard to even find flashes of him looking good at this point. It's the shooting is still not there. He's still only shooting 35% on the year. I just, it's obviously, just like we're saying with Mitchell Robinson, we can't call him a Hall of Famer yet. It's way too early to count Kevin Knox out on really anything in his career. But just do you have any updated opinion on where you stand with the whole Kevin Knox conversation? Like, is he somebody that all right, here's a good way to put it. Do you still project him to be the kind of player that you projected him when he was coming out of the draft?
Well, as I've owned up to a couple times, I didn't really like Kevin Knox coming out of college. I didn't see it with him. I understood why people liked him. He was a tall, very lengthy 4, basically, is what he was projected to be. Obviously, he spent time at both positions this year, but ultimately, everybody has hoped that he ends up as the 4. But I wasn't really high on him. And then the last couple of weeks, right before they drafted him, when he was rumored to come to the team, Matt Spenley, our former podcast host here.
Fucking shouts to Matt, man.
Yeah.
God, shouts to Matt.
And, he liked Knox, and obviously every prospect has their flaws, and we covered them a lot with him. But, he talked me into what could be good about Kevin Knox, and as did other people more knowledgeable about college basketball than I am. And then I think Matt Moore put it best on Twitter. He said, you shouldn't really be worried. I was like, why? He's just like, 3-point shooting big out of Kentucky, period. I think you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, well, when you put it that way, I'm a little bit more at ease. Like, yeah, that's a pretty good point. Kentucky just manufactures these NBA players. So I kind of talked myself into him. And then in the summer league, he played well enough to make me feel good about it. And, when he came back from the injury, he started playing really well in December, and I thought he was going to start getting back on track. And
right.
It's just been a rough 2019. So I don't know that it changes a lot for me. I still think he's going to be a pretty good player. It's alarming. The defense, I don't give a shit about. Every rookie's bad at defense. Next year I'll start really digging into him. But his thing is scoring, and he's not shooting effectively. He's not assisting at all. We've seen him have good games on the boards. We know that he has the tools to be good at them because we saw him do it in December, especially. But he's not doing it enough, and that's part of the motor issue too. And it's like you can't not do all these things while being a scorer who isn't scoring effectively.
Right. He's just he's really looked pretty one-dimensional lately. Like, it's not even like you're saying, like he's not a passing. He's not, going to assist on very many baskets. He's obviously not scoring. His field goal percentage is just above 35% on the season so far. It's just obviously he doesn't have a lot of confidence in his shot, and that's okay. Like that, I'm not really all that worried about the 35% field goal percentage, but that can't be anywhere near that, next season. He needs to be able to really find a way to take a lot of strides in this summer coming up, and just really, really finding ways to improve his game, because he looks like he's pretty exposed out there right now. He looks like he's really only got, he can only catch and shoot on the perimeter, and drive to the lane, and he really hasn't been very good at either one of those lately. There's again though, we have seen flashes of him dominate. We did see the summer league play, the lower competition, of course, but we saw a very confident, well-composed player in that summer league. We saw in the month of December when he got his Rookie of the Month award, like we saw somebody who was confidently able to assert himself on the court, and that has just disappeared in pretty much every sense of it. And I think a lot of it's probably fatigue. A lot of it, like you said, he does have the physical gifts for this and everything, but he kind of needs to really be able to kind of recompose himself, I think.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say it to try to reduce the blowback here. This is not us hating on Kevin Knox. This is not us wishing him anything poor. This is not us saying that he's not going to pan out as an NBA player. This is us simply observing on March 10th, he is struggling in his rookie season. And of course it can get better. Hopefully it does. I think it will. I still believe in him very much. But it's less encouraging when you're not playing well. That's literally how the logic works. If you aren't playing well for a while, we aren't going to feel as good about you. And that goes for everybody. When Moutier was playing better at the beginning of the season, we liked that. We're like, oh, it's good that he's not a dumpster fire. It's good that he's contributing to winning games. Like that's good. And when he stopped doing that, then we resumed to not feeling good about it. So, it's not a hate or us not hoping it goes well. It's just it stinks right now. Of course, we believe in him. We want him to do well, but it's not looking good for some things. Hopefully, he turns it around. Season's almost over. He gets a full NBA summer in, and excited to see what he looks like next year too. But the last 15 or so games here, I'd like to see him close out strong. He actually played pretty well tonight.
I thought he did as well.
13. I mean, he played 27 minutes, 27 and a half, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. The rebounds and assists are always more important than the points to me, because for me, he needs to be engaged in all facets when he's having a decent game, or else he's just sort of lazily chucking. So when he had a steal tonight, which was not anything wild, but somebody poked the ball loose. He was just aware, snagged it, went coast to coast for a layup. That was a nice play. He was 5 of 11 from the field, which that's pretty good. 45% is better than 35%. I'll take it. 2 of 2 from the line, 1 of 3 from deep, which that's all right. It's not great, but it'll do. A couple of turnovers, but if he's going to give you 4 assists, you take the 2 turnovers with it. That's fine. I take that any day of the week. So more encouraging because he's been struggling lately. It's nice to see him have a nice, well-rounded game to hopefully get back on track. Hopefully he can build off this now. But he looked good tonight. Took a couple of nice drives, a couple of nice passes. He had a really nice one to Dotson where he, drew the defenders into the paint with them. So the help went to him, and then he kicked it back out to Dotson when the help left Dotson, and Dotson drilled the 3. So there were some nice things he did tonight too, and it wasn't empty by any means. It really was impactful. Just good to see.
One other player that is having a tough end to the season because he can't get on the court right now is Frank Ntilikina. Frank's missed 19 games so far with this injury. He has a groin injury. They haven't been very descriptive about it. It's led to a number of speculation. He hasn't played since late January, and it's just obviously all of us this entire season and for much of last year too have been really just wondering where Frank is, just what his actual impact can be like on the court. Like there's again, he has those flashes where he is driving to the lane well. He was starting to shoot, well previously. Like he has nights where he's handling very well, and now we haven't seen him play in nearly 2 months at this point, and it seems like all the progress that he has begun making throughout this year is really in the back of everyone's mind, and we haven't even seen a minute of him with Dennis Smith Jr. and everything, but. At the same time, you look at guys like De'Aaron Fox had like 31 points against the Knicks the other day. It's like, is there anything that you're missing too from Frank not being on the court? Like, obviously he's the Knicks' best perimeter defender. Whether maybe that's him or Dotson at this point, but he's a guy that they kind of they had talked themselves into relying on for like holding down that other point guard, the speedy guys in the league. And I think we're starting to see when you have guys like De'Aaron Fox scoring, all those points on us that, Frank actually did have a value on this team that, kind of was overshadowed by his lack of contributions in other places earlier this year.
So, as you know, I don't think Frank Ntilikina has really improved in any way this season. And I mean that because I'm not going to count he handles the ball 5% better as a win. His stats are almost exactly identical to last year across the board. He struggled defensively to begin the season outside of like the first 2 weeks. Then he struggled for like 2 months. So it's just maybe 2 months is exaggeration, but he struggled for a while before getting back on the horse there. And the injuries suck, but I haven't seen anything from him. And I still think that there's a good player in there. I just don't know how they're going to get it out of him, especially since they seem sort of resigned to the fact that he's going to play off ball going forward. Everything's about playing with Dennis now. So I don't know what they really want to do with him here. They've never, they never really let him play point.
Yeah.
And so now basically, no matter what happens this summer, right? Like he's always going to be off ball if he stays. Like if Kyrie comes, he's going to be off ball. If Dennis stays and Kyrie doesn't, he's going to be off ball. If you package Dennis for something, maybe you draft Ja Morant, maybe he's going to be off ball. Sorry. It seems like no matter what you do here, he's sort of damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. So.
Because that's a big problem. That's been the whole conversation with Frank all season, because it's been, he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know where to comfortably be on the court. The Knicks don't comfortably know how to deploy him throughout the game. Fizdale doesn't know what to do with him. Once they overhauled the roster and they got Dennis Smith Jr. in there, a guy who's going to change Ntilikina's, performance and where he needs to be on the court pretty significantly. Like, him not being out there, obviously he's injured. Obviously there's nothing you can really do about that. But him not being out there to, learn how to coexist with Dennis Smith Jr. and try to show the organization that he does have value, that they can play together and that there can be a meaningful combination moving forward. This is really hurt. This really hurts him. I feel like these nearly 20 games that he's missing are, could have been some of the most important in determining where his career will head after this year, and as where the Knicks will value him. But him not being out here, it's just he is too in the shadows right now, and it's frustrating. I don't know where the organization values him, how highly, where he stands in their eyes. It's really interesting. I have no idea where it could go with him from here.
Yeah. So Fizdale said right before the All-Star break that they were expecting him back. This was like a week before the All-Star break. This was this was after the Pistons game at MSG. And he said, we're going to have Frank either right before or immediately after All-Star break. For sure. And he's like, and if we have to be cautious, then right after All-Star break. But he's coming back soon. So I was like, all right, that sounds totally matter. That sounds perfectly reasonable and fine. Yeah, of course you should be cautious and hold him out for the extra game or two and let him just rest. Perfectly reasonable, right? it's been a month since then. You know, like what are we doing? Is he okay? I mean, earlier today, I think we got a brief update about Frank, and it just basically was that he was going to be reevaluated again. He was reevaluated yesterday. This is from Knicks PR, a medical update. He was reevaluated yesterday. He's improving and will progress his on-court activity this week, including controlled contact, and he'll be reevaluated after the team's road trip. And it's like, so
is he going to get any games in the rest of the season?
Yeah. So after the road trip, I believe that would put them at, I think he has 12 games left at that point. And so obviously he's not going to be able to really mesh with probably any of his old teammates, let alone Dennis Smith in that time span, especially probably working into a new role. So I just don't, I don't know if he's going to be here anymore. It just seems like it makes sense for them to try to move him. And it just seems like we always come to this conclusion with this team and their young players. But
he seems to be the first, the first piece that they would dangle in front of another team in any kind of a larger deal. Like,
and you know I don't want to trade Frank, but like if they were to get like a, it was rumored in the Berman article, which take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, consider the source. Any other caveats I have to say. It was rumored that basically they're going to try to get some sort of a first round pick for Frank. And if you can get a first, then sure. Like I prefer we have Frank, but if you can get a first begrudgingly, okay, that's fine. I'll take the first. Thank you. We have another asset. Fine. But if it's not that, if it's like a second, I would not feel good about that at all.
It just feels like you're better off riding him out at that point.
Even if he doesn't team controlled,
yeah.
Even if he doesn't play.
Yeah. And then Frank is, when is his free agency? It's not next summer, it's the following, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
His RFA, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's not like he's carrying a huge cap hit. It's not like he was a top 3 or 4 pick in the draft. Like I still feel like, overall, I don't know where I sit with Ntilikina now. I don't know where, exactly I would put him. I think, like I was saying before, just missing this chunk of games is so, it makes him so much harder to place what his value is to this team. But overall, like, that small, amount of cap space you're going to hold on to for his contract, to me, is still worth the potential that he could have.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think that's pretty much all we got to get to for this week. Same thing as I tell you guys at the beginning of the show. Same thing as I ask you for in the middle of the show. Please make sure you're following the Knicks Wall on Twitter. Head to our Facebook page, Instagram at Knicks Wall. We're on Twitch. We got all these platforms you can find us with. Someone's there always. Follow me and Kyle. Follow Bryan on Twitter. We have all of our names. Just look them up. It's pretty easy. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform of your choosing. What do we got going on over at the knickswall.com right now?
So, at the knickswall.com, we had a couple of nice things this past week. I know there's something coming out. Where is it? Basically, for Alonzo Trier, we have something coming out tomorrow, and this is by Tim. How do you enunciate his last name? Kohut?
Yes.
So, Tim Kohut. It's the projecting the long-term fit for Alonzo Trier. So, that should be fun because we all like ISO Dro, the undrafted god.
Mm-hmm.
So looking forward to that very much. We had a nice feature by, I think it was Mike Cortez last week, about Dennis Smith Jr. and the improvements he would have to make to, really fulfill his potential in New York. And I believe the other interesting piece was by our own Ty Jordan, who wrote about the very illogical Emmanuel Mudiay, Dennis Smith Jr. pairing that Fizdale has kept trying to push.
Yeah.
And Ty was like, all right, we'll if Fizdale wants to do it, we'll take a look at it. All right. And he did. So it's interesting. And it's interesting in a way that you'd imagine it to be interesting. And, Ty did good work. It's just it's just, it's what we know. It's a very silly pairing. So just give it all a read. Just every day, original features every weekday. Just make sure you check that out. Going to be a busy week for sure. And especially now we get the draft coverage coming up. So make sure you guys looking out you'll probably see more college related tweets for us. That's because this is March. This is what we got to do. The Knicks are going to lose most of the games the rest of the year. And we have to shift our focus to Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett and John Morant and Cam Reddish and Jarrett Culver and anybody else that the Knicks can possibly get with a top 5 pick. So you'll be seeing those from our draft czar, Mike Cortez, or myself. We'll be getting those out, and we could talk prospects a little bit more. I think Mike might be taking over the account certain Saturdays, so look over for that. And that's pretty much it. Just get excited for the draft coverage. That's the time of year it is.
Back up. It's going to ramp back up. Just stay true. A couple more games, everybody. Yeah. Stay true.
You guys know the deal. This is what we do. Once we hit March, we know we got to get going on draft coverage. It's all we're all thinking about at this point. So I for one am very, very excited to read all about Zion Williamson for the next couple of months until we inevitably get the 4th pick.
I feel you there, man. I feel you there. Well, so that's why we have Mike doing the draft boards. We need some kind of contingencies plan. We need to know that it's all going to be okay in one way or another, whether or not they get Zion. God, I hope we get Zion.
I think that's the thing that would break me. Is if we got RJ, I'd be mad, but I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be devastated. Like, okay, still a very good talent. I'm okay with this. But then, and it doesn't matter whose name I say, so I'm not even going to say a name. If the Knicks fall out of like the top 2, especially the top 3, if they end up 4 or 5, and I think there's the lowest they'll probably end up being able to go with the way the season is going is 6. If they end up 4 to 6 somehow, that might be it for, and then they didn't sign any free agents. That might be it.
Wow.
For my well-being. I'm not saying I'm giving up fandom. I'm just saying
Kyle Maggio is announcing his retirement on air.
No, that would be hard, man. That would be hard after all. This whole season has just been about man, hopefully we can get Zion or RJ, one of those really top flight guys. And then the Durant stuff heats up, the Kyrie stuff heats up, possibly Anthony Davis, we have enough assets, all these things. And then the comeback, and it's just the kids, and then Cam Reddish, it would be hard, man. It would be hard for me to do it. I would. I'd come around. I'd talk myself into it. I'd be good to go. But it would be it would be something you really hate to see, man.
It's a whirlwind. It's gonna be a whirlwind, and plenty more still to come. So we will talk to you all on Wednesday night.